Thank you. It is so loud.
Just in case we didn't know.
Yeah, so we'll call the meeting to order, 7 o'clock. We have 5 people, so we have a quorum. We have 2 members not here. I wanted to just take a brief moment to start and say that our town lost a longtime member who served on a number of committees, including this planning board, and that's Brian Colgren. Passed away yesterday afternoon. That's why Bruce is not here tonight, and I'm sure we'll have more to say in the future, but just out of respect for Brian, I think we just need to acknowledge that we've lost somebody who put in a lot of time and hours for this town. And I know was still a resource for Bruce, even though he wasn't an active member of the planning board, so. So we'll go ahead and get started then with the draft minutes from May 6th. Here, so I'll let you all. You probably were not here either. I will also abstain. Technically, I mean, we have.
Where do we have enough?
I think having 5
Yeah.
is a quorum,
As
long as the majority approves.
I don't have any edits.
No changes. No changes here.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Want to
Yes.
vote? Go ahead. Abstain.
Abstain. Oh, you're gonna.
We usually go around to roll call, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that motion carries. So it's 3 yes and 2 abstentions. And yeah, so Jim will take the minutes for us and do his best, and Kathy said she would watch the meeting later. Well, before we just start with you, I do want to just put out there, we are still looking for alternates, or at least one, so I know Murray had expressed an interest at one point, and I followed up with an email, but I haven't seen or heard anything from him. And Randy, I think, also had expressed an interest. So if anybody runs into them in town, feel free to give them a nudge if they're still interested. And if they're not, then we should just be thinking about that.
Okay.
So I think the first thing on is Sarah Bollinger from SWRPC. And I know you sent a memo and some updates based on the last meeting. It looked like I listened to the meeting this afternoon, so I think you guys covered a lot of ground, and everything sounded really good. So I'll let you tell us where you want to pick up.
We'll kind of run through the memo, just at the top being the site plan application. I don't think it's anything that we need to discuss together as a group. The only real changes, I took the list of submission requirements directly from the site plan regulations as revised and plugged those into the list area here on the application. And I added the time frame for submittal, and I added 2 affidavits, which you guys can keep or throw out. They're kind of standard practice. One allows the planning board or its agent to enter the property that's under review, which again is pretty standard, but you guys didn't have it there yet.
Okay.
And the other one is a certification that all of the required materials have been submitted, and any additional materials will be presented at the expense of the applicant, not the board. So again, I'm leaving it with you guys now. You guys can keep or toss that or whatever, but I sent Kathy the PDF and the Word doc, so you guys can play around a bit more as you see fit. And same with the site plan regs. In my opinion, those are ready for your legal review. But yeah, leaving it to you guys.
Yeah, it didn't sound like that was gonna happen after the last meeting. Is that my understanding? It hasn't gone to legal review yet,
It
right?
has not,
Okay.
but I
I
think it's ready now.
think it's ready too, except for I did have some comments on the
Okay.
application.
Sure.
Only for, it's a really minor nitpicky thing, but for consistency on our subdivision application on the first page where you have tax map parcel numbers, we call it map and lot. And I don't care which language we prefer, but
To actually change that?
I'm sure you didn't. It's something we changed on our subdivision app, so I'm just trying to be consistent.
So it just says map and lot or tax map lot?
I think it says map and then has a line and then lot and then the S in parentheses and then a line.
That makes sense.
I don't know if our nomenclature is going to change as we implement the new GIS system. So,
Oh,
The
yeah.
question for Russ, but
yeah, I can just keep it as it is. for
Yeah.
now.
and the other question, this is more of a question, but I liked your, the language under this affidavits signed and dated. The question I have is what often happens and still happens with our subdivision, even though we updated it, is that people don't realize that they have to sign where it says by.
Mhm.
So we often have to go back if they've designated someone and
That's
say,
true.
we actually need your signature that you've authorized this person. And some people will send a separate letter, which is also acceptable. But I do think we need a signature there. Unless we feel it's covered on the next page.
On which part? I'm sorry.
Under applicant, so
Oh, right there.
item number 4
So
says
it says signature where it says.
owner, president, or treasurer if a corporation. There should be a signature there. Or maybe it's a line printed name and a signature,
Yeah,
or we include it in the next affidavit page, one or, it could be both, or
that makes sense.
So where it says by, they should be.
we need a
signed.
signature of authorizing someone else to be their
Yeah.
representative. I think that was all I had on there, so, you said you sent the Word version, so unless it's gonna really mess up the formatting, I can try to make those changes myself.
These are very quick and small.
Okay,
Don't mind, I can pop those in and send them like that.
great, then if everyone is comfortable, I'll send it for legal review.
Correct.
Yep.
And, a tentative date for a hearing would be June 17th, so not our next meeting, but the one after.
Okay.
And, we'll finalize that at the next meeting, depending on the legal review, because if they want us to make changes, we may need more time.
Yeah, we might need.
Yeah.
Are you using the same legal that the select board uses? No.
We were advised by the select board, I believe, to use, what's his name, Laura's, Spectrum Morgan's company,
Yeah, yeah,
is it Joe or,
Joe
Yeah,
is.
Joe
Joe Driscoll?
that's.
Is that who you
Ward
use?
3.
Yeah, that's who we've been using.
Okay.
And so that's it, I think, for site plan.
Check that off. So the community engagement plan, I think we'll be able to go through this pretty quickly.
Mhm.
I revised it based on our discussion at the last meeting. We're looking. I'm just not sure if I should, okay, so this is what will be submitted. I think Christine will be the one that submits this to the.
Yep.
Housing,
Yep, by the end of the month.
by the end of the month.
Mhm.
It will be ready to do that. So we're looking at the display boards that we discussed previously. I'd actually like to take a small moment to discuss those tonight, just because I've started really working with, what the visuals are gonna be for the existing PRDs in town. And when you look at the tax map, it's very obvious Sarah Drive. And I was wondering, did any of you guys work on the approval for that? Or have any institutional knowledge about it?
The original PRD,
Yeah.
that was quite some time ago.
Yeah. Well, so what I was wondering about is, most of the parcels on Sarah Drive are around 1.5 acres. There are a couple that are 1 acre, but nothing falls below that. Do you know how that area was determined? Was it based on soils and septic or other factors?
I do not know, but I would guess it was based on, hey, this is what I want. Is it okay?
Okay. And that's completely reasonable and fine. I just, I was looking at the subdivision plans this morning and it showed that they could have, if it was a standard subdivision, I don't know, it was a lot more parcels than what they asked for. It might have been like 29 or something like that.
Hmm.
And then they only put in 12 or 13, I can't remember. So I just was trying to follow and invent the story in my head a little bit and
And how many years ago was that built? Like,
It was like 2002, 2003.
okay, so it's still a
Yeah, we
while.
listed it
Yeah.
back.
yeah,
And I think our original PRD stuff was done back in the eighties. I'm not
Well,
100% positive about that, but certainly early nineties at the latest.
yeah,
Mhm.
That was probably 2005, 2007 is when it was done.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And just for demonstration purposes, because that one looks more like you would see if a developer came to town, the way that it's divided up, because the other ones look a little bit more like, well, I live on this land and I want to carve out a few pieces for other people. I was planning on using that as the example of how it exists in town today, and then sort of, I don't want to say butchering it a little bit, but redrawing like what a developer could have done had they chosen to at that time. And then what that same development could look like with whatever is proposed for the PRD reinvented. But I want to know, like, is that gonna hit too close to home for people, seeing it applied to a development that actually exists here? Like taking the temperature of your community, should I not do that?
Well, you want to retroactively apply these rules? Is that what?
No, she
No.
just wants to use it as an
Oh,
example.
that should be fine, I would think.
Yeah, just so
Yeah.
that people
Good,
can
because
picture it
people
on
can
something that's real.
Truly visualize like, oh, I can drive down that road.
And I think it's
And see
also,
what she's talking about.
Right.
it's also safer than doing it in a field that has nothing in it
Yeah.
right now in
Right.
town, or a forest
Right, that's true too.
that people are attached
But people
to.
who live in that community, they won't feel singled out. Or,
We don't have that many PRDs.
Yeah, I know, there's not much to
And
choose
that's
from.
probably the most professionally done of
yeah,
them.
And probably the most recent.
Yeah,
Well, maybe
except
Bruce's.
Randy's got his new one he's trying to do.
Yeah, well, yeah,
But
but it
that's not
doesn't
done
come
yet.
to us yet, so.
okay, again, I want this to be something that's well received, and so I don't wanna create
Yeah.
giant posters of things that are people like, that's my house.
I don't think people will care.
I don't think
No, I
so.
don't
Select board
think so either.
opinion is, nobody will care.
Perfect. So,
Do you want me to look at the files for that?
I don't think it's necessary. I pulled
Okay.
files from the Registry of Deeds this morning.
Okay.
There's nothing about the conversation. I guess if you wanna look at minutes about how they arrived at those lot sizes,
Mm,
I don't know if those are accessible on the website.
Not on the website,
Okay,
no, in the office.
that could be helpful if you don't mind doing that.
Sure.
So we know how the conversation went. Okay, and moving right along, so when did I say I was gonna have those ready for you by? I think I'm bringing you drafts of the boards at the next meeting.
Yes, June 3rd.
Sure, okay. And following that, we're gonna be working on the mailer series. And I did have a conversation with Silver Direct about printing and using the every door direct mailing
Mhm.
the post office.
Yep,
And so each mailing is going to cost $190 for the postage and the mail prep from Silver Direct. And then based on what format we want to print, I have a lot of different price points. So if we just do 8 by 6, 6¼ postcards, colored cardstock and black ink, that'd be $150 to print enough of them per mailing. So 340 total for each postcard mailing. And so we're proposing 3 potential postcard mailings and then a flyer mailing. And so if we wanted to do a 4-page flyer, which would be an 11 by 17 folded in half, If it's color and two-sided, it would be $350 for the printing. Black and white, two-sided, $275. Same price if it's colored paper. So just kind of putting those out there, the budget will absolutely cover all of the mailings and you could pay for the town. But we're not gonna do that. Todd was suggesting possibly shifting some of the budget from the mailing over to refreshments for the public forum in November. And so I'm just putting that out there in the air to kind of consider as we develop the plan for that. I know it's way in the future, but
Is there a particular reason that you would pick that company?
just
Traditionally,
because we work with them, but if you guys have like
okay,
different
we usually use
companies.
Savline Graphics and
Oh.
doesn't make any huge difference. The prices sound pretty similar.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I mean, you guys absolutely can use whoever you want to use. These guys are just in Swansea, so it's closer to us, but
Okay, our board assistant knows how to do all the EDDM and stuff with Savron, so.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yes, I'm sure these estimates are very close to what you get from them as well.
Mhm.
So, and I sent this to Kathy. So you guys should probably have this in the Dropbox.
Yeah, we all got it, I think.
Oh, she already did?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So efficient.
I think it was me actually, but thank you. Kathy is not feeling well, so I saw the email and I was like, I'm just gonna forward this. She gets a copy anyway.
Perfect. And then the other thing on the display and comment board is, do we have any volunteers from the planning board here to set those up and move them?
I can do that, I'm just, I am away at some point, but I
So
think
we're
it doesn't
looking at
interfere.
Just for
August 5th,
4 days. Yep,
I
Well,
can
really,
also help
August
too,
6th. Okay.
as long as I'm not, which I don't think I am.
well, August 6th is a Wednesday, right?
Mhm.
So the office is closed Wednesdays, correct?
Okay, so it won't actually be August 6th.
Yeah, the 7th, the 7th.
And we can amend that here.
And you had leaving it up, I think, until the 5th of September?
Yeah, moving it to Friendship Hall on September 5th. And that is the next thing is
Yep.
someone from the board reaching out to get permission to set the boards up at the super lunch and the Friday night potluck for September. I don't know if somebody is already involved in those events or, you know,
I can do the super lunch. I don't normally do the potluck, but I don't know if anybody else does.
Intermittent,
No,
very intermittent.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do the super lunch, so I can reach out. It's Peggy who organizes the
Yeah.
Both,
community
right?
potluck.
Yeah, both of them.
Mary does the super
Oh,
lunch,
okay.
Mary Amston.
Yeah.
and then for the Harvest Festival, does the town just have a tent and a table and that's where we'll place this?
We would ask for a table in our booth,
Mhm.
Okay.
and we don't need electricity, right? Yeah, they usually set up tables for us.
Okay. And really, it'll be, well, this is also an important question. Do you guys have 3 easels?
I have
Do
easels.
you have easels?
Yeah, I believe I have 3 standalone and 1 tabletop.
Okay,
Pretty sure it's 3, but I'll check.
okay,
They're not heavyweight, so don't, if it's particularly windy, it could be a problem. But
well, and I'm also thinking for, how the boards will be set up at the town offices and at Friendship Hall.
mhm,
You know, I mean, what I'll do is plot them, you know, on the big printers, so it'll be regular paper,
mhm.
but then put them on like foam board.
Yep.
So that they're solid, so that won't be easy to tack into a wall or a bulletin board unless that's the way you want them, like, I'm just kind of imagining what this actually is gonna look like, so I deliver the right product.
Yeah.
Right, can you get 3 easels in the lobby in the town office?
That's gonna be pretty crowded.
It would be really tight.
Okay, what's a better solution? Should I try to make it like,
Trying to
Two?
picture what.
2 boards, maybe?
Tack it on the wall.
Yeah, we could probably come up with some way of getting it on the wall
okay,
at the town office. Have to look at it.
But that wall, when you walk into the right, which you would think it would be.
There's a
that's like
bulletin board.
board information, they're not,
Yeah,
probably gonna want us covering that stuff up.
I don't think anybody ever looks at it, but I was thinking that could be a potential site for it. We'll check into it.
okay,
When I go to the office, I'll take some pictures and some measurements.
okay, okay, because I'm looking at, you know, like plan size, it'll be 22 by 34, I think, so that there's enough room that you don't have to get like right up at it to read it. And
Geez, it's gonna be, yeah, but it's gonna be hard to fit that, no matter where we put it, in the town office lobby.
should I alter course and make smaller ones for town hall and the full-size ones for Friendship Hall and the Harvest Festival?
I think whatever you put in the lobbies should probably be smaller.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think you're gonna fit the same size, like,
Large size for Harvest Festival is
it's
good.
good.
Yeah,
And probably for Friendship Hall, 'cause
Yeah,
like,
Friendship Hall.
there's a lot
Yeah.
in there.
Okay, we can do that. I mean, still in the early phase of it.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
We can absolutely calibrate. Okay,
And then maybe a note saying, for the one in the office, large size will be
Yeah.
available at the Harvest Festival,
mhm,
maybe, or visit us at the Harvest Festival, or, you know, something inviting.
okay, and the mailers.
Also, just on the Harvest Festival note, I did ask Carol today about the date, because you had September 13th.
Is that correct?
She said it's on the calendar as the 21st, but she didn't know who put it there.
Oh, okay, so maybe we'll add a September, just TBD.
It is usually later in
usually,
September.
End of September.
that sounds right.
Um,
I think the 21st is probably a better guess.
and the fire department's one that organizes all this, Ken.
Yeah. So we'll just confirm that, but I don't believe it's the 13th.
Is the 21st, and that will kind of change some of the strategy, but not as far as this chart goes. Just because that will fall after your
Our
meeting in September.
Right.
But that is okay. Okay, so rather than walking through every single thing that is in here, are there any other areas of the engagement strategy that need revision? Because the rest of this, it's mailers, it's the 2 public forums, one that will fall at the October 21st planning board meeting tentatively. And I don't know when we need to decide if that date should be moved based on planning board documents and applications that come before you guys this fall. But I think it's gonna be something to really keep in mind once we hit September, because, you know, mailings are gonna be going out with dates, inviting the public to participate in the conversation.
So I looked up the dates for when our final versions have to be submitted
Mhm.
for proposed amendments, and last year it was February 3rd.
Mhm.
Which was a day after our February meeting, our first meeting in February.
Oh, wow.
So we typically try to have the first hearing in December
Oh, absolutely.
and the second one in
For the
January.
Right, because then it has to go to the select board and.
And legal,
Yeah.
right, and get submitted. So I had for the first hearing and then sort of backing things up, the first hearing on December 16th. And then the second hearing on January 20th. Because assuming it follows the same format as last year, we'd have to have our final versions submitted by February 2nd.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So in your other memo document, you didn't number the pages, but I think it's page 2. And it's under number 2, mailer series, you have mailer 3, I thought maybe would be November, not December.
Yep.
And then mailer 2 would be January, not February, but even that one,
Well, I was thinking that this would be, the final mailer would be an invitation to come to town meeting,
okay. Okay,
which, makes sense to be February so that it's not so far in advance that people
right,
forget.
yep,
If you get the community buy-in, you definitely want them to show up.
yep,
But also,
well, that makes sense.
there will be room in the budget if you guys want to add a 5th mailing in, like an additional postcard to, advertise the second public hearing if it's needed.
Will these changes though be on the ballot or will they be at town meeting?
On the ballot,
Ballot
Be on the
required.
ballot. So I'm just wondering if we need a mailing for town meeting.
Well, I say town meeting,
You mean-
do you guys vote on the same day as town meeting, or do you not?
No, we have-
no, we have 2, we have a Tuesday voting and then town meeting on Saturday.
I'm sorry.
But technically.
Oh, it's technically town meeting
It's
part
town
1.
meeting,
Right.
Town meeting part 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the mailing would be
For
to
the
get out
Tuesday.
and vote
Yeah,
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Okay, just want to make sure that.
no, I
I mean-
appreciate that you pointed that out.
and then the one in November could have both hearing dates on it.
Yeah.
There's a danger just to sending too many out,
Oh,
Right,
then
right, I
just
would
that-
send an extra one.
toss it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll stick with the total of 4.
Yeah.
Because each one has a different purpose.
Mhm.
So, the first one will be informational and, what did I say I'll have for you?
A draft, I made a timeline.
Oh, that's so smart. I should've done that.
Final, for a draft of the first mailer, you say June 17th.
Okay. Perfect. And so with that, this is why I actually don't want to spend too much time talking about this. We can get into the PRT, so we have our draft idea for the for the ordinance. Okay, so I will make a handful of changes to this and I'll just send it back to you, Christine.
Sure,
I'll send it to Kathy so everybody can review it, but
yeah, if you send it to that templeplanning.gov, is that what, then it goes to all of us,
oh,
so.
okay. That's easy.
One word, temple planning.
Yep, .gov. Or at
At
templenh.gov,
TempleNH.gov.
sorry, yeah,
I'm sure it's on the website too.
It is.
it is.
I just didn't realize it made you all so accessible.
Yeah, I mean Kathy gets them too, so she could put it in our Dropbox, but
Yep.
yeah, it goes to all of us.
Were there any other things that we should address on that?
I think that's it.
Okay.
That's all I had. I know I missed the last meeting, so sorry.
So moving on to the PRD ordinance. So the way I've reorganized this table a little bit, well, I didn't really reorganize it, but I kept all of the original language that you've been working with at the last meeting. And I've just added the comments and feedback from you folks in the first column so that we just kind of know what ground we've covered and where we still need to revisit. So would you guys like to revisit the sections that need revisiting first or get through the rest of the new ground first? Because I feel like the revisit areas are going to be a larger discussion and the new ground, some of those things could be.
I feel like the new ground, but I just listened to your last meeting this afternoon, so it's still fresh in my head.
Sure.
But if you all want to go back, that's fine.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, so is that, put us at road?
Roads and
service?
services.
Yes.
Do you have?
Running for the-
Get all this stuff together.
Yeah.
Whether short notice for me to get on this.
Yeah, sure.
So we actually kind of have two separate items within this grid that are addressing roads. One is the road standards and the other is the road and services, and they could potentially be addressed in the same area. So right now, we do allow private roads with reduced internal frontage, and I believe that that reduced frontage is, I think it's coordination of. Am I correct in that? I don't know if there's a minimum.
There's a minimum 300 foot frontage on a class 5 road for the entire.
Right, for the entire
Yeah.
development, but for a private road within the subdivision. I mean, you don't set any minimums there, right? Okay. And I think that's good for what we're trying to accomplish. But we can do a little bit more with the language there by encouraging or requiring shared driveways, and require might be language you guys are uncomfortable with, so maybe that should be where we start the conversation.
Yeah, I think require
Get rid of that.
I would get rid
Yes.
of that. I feel like, I mean,
people that have them aren't super thrilled with them.
exactly.
Yeah,
I haven't met somebody who's excited about having a shared.
You need to have maintenance agreements and it messes up things on people's financing when they're trying to.
Right.
purchase
Yeah,
property and-
I don't even know if we'd use encourage.
Fair enough.
I think right now in our driveway regs, we allow them
Mhm.
by planning board approval.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah,
They did not seem to be encouraged.
they're not encouraged.
Are they even by plan? I thought they could do them. I thought, right, because we just had we had a shared driveway and it's allowed, right? We didn't have to approve it.
I think the road agent still has to.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
sorry that I'm questioning. I just.
No, that's
I thought
okay.
When we
Always
went through
good
it, it
to-
was like, oh, it's not encouraged, but it's allowed.
Yeah, it would make more sense in a PRD situation, because that could be part of the common PRD land, driveway. You know, it's a shared driveway, it's basically just an internal
Yeah,
road. But
Gotta
it should not be mandated.
right. Well, and the thing that also kind of comes up with the shared driveways and the private roads is that when you hit 3 dwellings, it becomes a road for E911 standards.
No idea.
I have no idea.
This is something that we ran into a lot in Swansea, and so like a triplex, then their driveway wound up becoming a private road so that it could be identified for 911.
Hmm.
It was a very big deal there, so I'm glad it hasn't been a big deal for you guys.
It hasn't.
So
This just says common driveways will be permitted in the town of Temple where terrain and or drainage, we are missing some punctuation. Conditions make individual driveways impractical when approved by the planning board.
Oh, it is.
Yep.
Okay.
And we say 2 or more parcels. It becomes a private driveway at the point of which it provides access to 1 parcel, the common driveway. So it's only, there's a
Yep.
portion shared. Yep. Should the common portion of the driveway extend further than the right-of-way line, the planning board will require legal easements to be submitted along with the driveway permit application for a review by town council at the owner's expense or the applicant's expense.
okay, well,
And it can't become a town road.
oh, that's interesting. It can't become a town road.
Nope.
No, no internal road of the PRD can ever be a town road.
Interesting. How did I miss that?
No internal road of a PRD. So
So like
it's
it's-
Sarah Drive,
Well, like Stonegate, you come into
Yeah.
Stonegate,
right?
that road goes all over creation.
Mhm.
that's a private road and it will never be a town road.
But Sarah Drive is a
Sarah Drive is a town
PRD,
road.
is a town road.
Well, that's strange. How did that happen?
We'll have to pull that file.
Lots of stuff happens.
I'm 99% sure it's a town road.
It is, yeah,
Well, it could be that the town road goes up to the access point into the PRD, but I don't know. I haven't looked. at
we'll
that.
have to look at it.
Interesting, but was that because it's regulated against the town adopting these roads? Or
The town did not want to take on responsibility for
Right.
maintaining these things.
generally what happens? I mean,
Right.
That's very common, but you know, with Sarah Drive, yeah, I just wonder.
Well, I'd have to go back and read the original PRD
Mm.
requirements to know if that's mandatory or if it's part of the planning process to say,
Okay, it must be part, I think well, I don't know. I shouldn't say must, but I feel like it is probably part of the planning process, because I didn't see that. Which I could have missed it, but I feel like I should have this ordinance memorized by now because I've read through it.
well, also remember, this was done many years ago.
Right.
Right, it could have
There's
changed.
I'm sure there are a lot of holes in it.
Yeah, potentially. Okay, so moving on to the services part of this roads and services, it's really, I should have just put this as services. Do we want to add language encouraging low impact development for managing stormwater within these PRDs and shared water and wastewater facilities? And how would you like that language to look? So I was able to participate in a training a week or so ago that was specific to shared wastewater and water facilities, you know, for denser development in rural communities. And there are definitely ways to make this work, but there's also the question of, is there a will to make this work in Temple?
How restrictive would it be?
How restrictive would what be?
Any LED requirement, LID requirements?
That could be, I mean, it could just point to what you've just added to the site plan regs and not be restrictive at all. Or there could be a requirement that, I don't know, some percentage of the stormwater be treated with LID practices rather than, you know, a chamber system or
Mm,
what have you, depending on the size of the development.
I feel like we should be consistent with what was in site plan, but
right.
that's my,
Yeah, that's a somewhat complex and there'd be a whole lot of pushback on that for a smaller development,
right.
you know, for a good reason. But if somebody put in some massive development here, then you pretty much need something like that.
Well, it depends on the lot too,
Mhm,
what's downhill from,
mhm.
Well, there could be a threshold requirement in this, you know, if you're putting in, I don't know, 5 or more dwellings or
I think
or
it has.
creating X square feet of impervious surface or,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we have something in here to
Mhm.
handle stormwater. And I like the idea of it being at a size, right? Maybe if it's a certain number that we feel is like a significant development, that we would add language to it. But I don't know what that language looks like.
And how do we pick the size?
And how do you pick the size, right?
I think it would be, if we're gonna pick something, making it as a percentage of impermeable ground
Mhm.
would probably work better, but again, I have no idea what percentage to pick.
Yeah.
well, we could look to the site plan regs for that a little bit
Mhm.
because we just developed that. It wasn't based on percentage, it was based on just total impervious surface. I can't remember if you guys landed on the 5,000 square foot threshold of additional impervious. If it was
You know what page that was on?
wherever 5P is or 5Q.
Mhm.
That's landscaping. Q is landscaping, I think.
Can you talk a little bit about this, what shared water, wastewater, what do you mean by that?
So That would be a shared septic system and a
Sure.
community well, or not necessarily a community well, but depending on the number of units you have within the development. So that rather than needing,
Yeah.
you know, individual 75-foot well radiuses on every single property. You
That
don't have to deal with
we-
that, and you wouldn't have, you know, the leach field separation issues because you have one well saving the whole development. And it wouldn't necessarily be something by requirement unless
Okay.
you wanted it to be, and that would be another threshold thing. If you're over so many units, there's a requirement for a community water system and community wastewater. But, you know, like, again, I would strongly recommend that being a threshold, you know. And maybe that's something that you tie into the workforce housing component of this, because those shared systems are more affordable to build when you're talking about a lot of units. And because the statute for workforce housing allows 5-unit family buildings, it makes sense to have, I mean, in that case, it would just be a large septic, but it is a shared septic if you have 5
Sure.
families contributing to it.
Right,
So that's,
okay,
I guess
so
what I
it's
mean by that.
just some sort of language in it, either where we are encouraging it or
Well,
requiring it, I mean.
I think it really depends on where you guys are landing with your intent with the PRD ordinance. You
Right.
know, if the goal is to keep all of the development within a much smaller footprint than traditional subdivisions, it makes sense to require it because things would need to be closer together if they're sharing systems.
Mhm.
And that would help encourage, you know, less disturbance. And I don't necessarily want to say more conservation because they may not choose to put the remainder of the property into conservation. They may only choose to put the 50% that's required, but even that number could be bumped up. So again, I don't want to tell you how to rewrite this, but really consider what the goal is of the PRD. And if the goal is leaving more land in its natural state, then I would definitely recommend putting in a requirement that if it is beyond a certain number of units, that they have shared systems.
That's interesting. Well, take Stonegate, which was the first PRD in town. It's, I don't know, 15 lots, something like that,
Mhm.
roughly. They're all 3-acre lots.
Yep, that was
And
interesting. I looked at their plans this morning too, and I was
Yeah.
like, why are they all 3
well,
acres?
the reason was there wasn't enough frontage. There was
Okay.
no, you know, the town would have to put a road in.
Mhm.
No. All right, PRD. That was the main purpose, just to get around the 300-foot frontage requirement.
Yep,
But I have a PRD there myself,
okay,
and it has a 5-acre lot, a 1.1-acre lot, and a 3-acre lot,
interesting,
because that's how it was set up.
okay.
We have no intention of ever actually using it as PRD. So there's a wide spread of why people do PRDs in town.
Yep.
And Sarah is probably the best example of what
More
most people
traditional.
would think a PRD would be. But you're gonna get pushed back. Well, we have this problem with this 300-foot frontage on a class 5 road in that people can have a lot of property, but it's narrow.
Mhm.
What do they do with it?
Yeah.
And that problem we have discussed years ago and nothing ever happened. So there are no simple answers to any of this stuff. It's all,
No, there aren't, but I think it's good to be asking more questions to really dig at what is the intention. So that, you know, you get what you want out of this.
if we had a way of letting people use back lots,
Mhm.
independent of the PRD, then we could separate the two.
Yep.
But we don't have a way to allow that.
He wasn't at the last meeting. I
Mm,
think I talked about that a bit at the last
Mm.
meeting.
Well, yes, we did open the conversation of allowing backlot development within a PRD as a special exception. But again, that would still be part of a PRD. It wouldn't be a traditional subdivision.
Right, and I mean, why by special exception, that's allowed already in the PRD. And like Stonegate come in with a PRD plan. I mean, the planning board
Well,
could,
this would be that the development itself could have reduced frontage, like the mother lot And so you could have a longer private access
Yeah, okay.
road to get up into it. And I don't think there are actually many parcels that exist today within the residential rural agricultural, sorry, I can't remember the name of the district, where PRDs are allowed that would actually require that. You know, that have less than 300 feet of frontage, but also have more than 6 acres that would be developable. See, yeah, you may be the exception. There are not many.
The developable part of it might be questionable.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I have 66 foot of frontage and about 60 acres.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Yeah.
So you're just up the
Yeah.
creek.
Yeah, so that's another piece of this puzzle is how could it actually be applied within your community based on the land that you have and the lots that you have.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always a special exception route, and something like that would be
Yeah.
classic for this.
Yeah, that'll be coming. In the future.
So looking back at services again. Is that something you want me to develop further, looking at shared water and septic requirement above a certain threshold, or is that something that is not gonna work for this community?
And I'm just wondering is it a density bonus rather than a requirement?
That could work.
That would be more acceptable.
Yeah. And there are thresholds for the stormwater. It's 10,000 square feet or more of land area. This is from the site plan. To that 2,500 square feet of new impervious surface, 2,500 square feet or more. And within 100 feet of a surface water body or delineated wetland. Or is determined by the planning board to have the potential for significant impact on adjacent properties, et cetera.
So I guess the question there, is that good enough to cover you for changes within the PRD? Or do we need to repeat that language within the PRD, so if somebody wants to do something outside of that, they would need a variance?
I don't know why we wouldn't be consistent, but
Right, I would think consistency would be good.
Yeah, I feel like it should be the same.
Okay, so bring it into the ordinance or just keep it where it is? Because right now, when you have a PRD that's subject to site plan review, which is not necessarily gonna be all of them, but it will definitely be any one of significant size. They'll be held to that, but you can waive that. Whereas if it's built into the ordinance, only the ZBA can
Mhm.
waive it.
oh, I see.
And so that's where I'm going with this. If you want that to be a different type of requirement. And I'm not saying it needs to be, I'm just asking if you want it to be.
Gosh,
Yeah,
I would say historically, we have leaned towards the planning board being able to specify a lot of this.
Well, then
yeah,
let's leave it there.
yeah, I agree.
That's easy. Then we don't have to do more work on that, so that's. Okay. And then I've made a note here to consult with the road agent, fire department, and the health officer regarding the roads and the shared septic and well. Is there a way to do that? Like, can they come to a planning board meeting, or should I reach out to anybody directly, or?
I would say your best bet, at least with the health officer, is to reach out directly. He's so busy.
Okay.
I think getting him to come to a meeting would be really challenging. I don't know about Kent, you probably would have a better.
Can't, give him some notice, he could come.
Yeah, he would probably come to a meeting, the road agent. And I think fire department is probably a direct contact too, or do you think he'd come to a meeting?
Probably come.
Yeah, George?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay,
Um,
if you want to give me a date, but then I can,
I will give you a date by the end of the week.
Okay.
If it makes sense to bring them in at the next meeting, if they're available, or actually, let's just say, let's try to bring them into the next meeting, and if they're not available, we'll be able to do the June 17th meeting, but we'll be able to have a conversation with them before July.
okay, okay.
Okay.
And you want me to give you, Pete Caswell's contact for?
Is that the health?
He's the health
officer?
officer.
Sure, if that's not on the website, even if it is, that would save me time.
Yeah.
You can always email board assistant at templenh.gov and she can give you contact information for anybody.
I try not to put too much on Carol, so it's, if it's coming from you, that's different than me giving her more work to do.
She's the board assistant, not on the select.
She's not the planning board. So I,
Now I can commit her to help you
yeah,
out.
you can, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Works. Okay. Are we ready to turn the page and talk about the workforce housing bonus? Did I
Sure.
miss anything on this page?
Last one, the subdivision.
You said
We discussed
retain
that
it.
last time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so currently there's a 25% bonus for every 2 workforce housing units. And we had talked a little bit last time about density bonuses and what the cap would be on density bonuses, and, you know, I think we landed on retaining the 25% total. Oh, good, we didn't actually determine what the total would be. Just because, like, looking at this, if the goal, again, the goal, you know, what are the goals for this ordinance change? If the goal is to encourage more affordable housing to be built, you might want to increase the density bonuses for workforce housing. Because right now, if you're looking at the way the ordinance is, if you have a 10-acre lot, you're still only really gonna see 3 or 4 units of housing being able to be built. And that will not create affordable housing with the way the density bonus currently exists. And so we had talked about, you know, adding in a bonus for shared septic and shared wells. But what we really need to look at is, do we want to move the cap of that bonus when we're talking about affordable housing? You know, if you incorporate all of these plus this percentage of workforce housing units, you can have, I don't know. I'm not comfortable throwing the number out there because this is not my community. So
I guarantee you, people are gonna scream bloody murder no matter what is done here, so.
well, they
Well-
might, but having a number will be helpful because
Yeah.
I will make a pretend development on one of these display boards so that they can see that it's actually not that scary.
Can you give a few different examples on that board and then we can see what the personal preferences are?
What is the highest I should put?
Density,
Yeah, density bonus. What's the fail-safe line I shouldn't go past? 50%?
I think 50%.
and I just know that if we say, hey, look, you can put 6, 7, 8 houses on a 10-acre lot, gonna get a lot of complaints. Not that, I mean. a lot
Well,
of
we
it
can
is not-
adjust based on
Right.
feedback.
They aren't necessarily valid complaints, just it's a change.
Of course, and we want people to feel like they're a part of the change and
Right.
the conversation, and that's why we're doing this.
Right. Right. And I think showing that 25% bonus doesn't get us affordable housing, it is also important. you know, maybe like, I don't know if you could put in estimated market value. I don't know how to, math is not my thing, but
Yeah, I'm
because that will be
thinking
more
about that a little bit,
effective.
because I'm thinking about, two developments in Keene right now. One is, I think they finished constructing it. It's just north of the Market Basket on Route 10. It's called like Magnolia Way, and
Mhm.
it looks like it should be affordable housing, you know, the houses are all, I don't know, no more than 1,600 square feet, you know, they're tidy houses. The road is very small, the lots are very small, but they're selling for $500,000.
I think
So,
those
Those are the
ones,
ones on the right before you get to Market Basket?
yep,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's the average home price in the state right now, isn't it?
those ones on 202, right? Aren't those a $500,000 too? The ones on, in
and we
Peterborough,
need to be average, we need to make them
Right.
affordable, or make it
The
possible
ones
to
in
be.
Hero.
the cluster development.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where the old flower
Yeah.
shop.
No,
I don't know.
they haven't.
I don't know anything about that. Well, I mean, a
They're
lot of
listed at
people
They're
are,
listed at 525.
yeah,
And $500,000 is not affordable.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's crazy for that, those houses.
yeah.
The deck is right.
I know, I'm
the
like,
deck
it's
is
on
on
the
the
On the
road.
road.
Yeah.
Not a
that-
great.
Yeah.
You'll have to see what we're talking about. It's a cluster development.
It's not, I'm
Yeah.
recommending what
Yeah, yeah,
They
no,
did,
I'm
I'm
just saying, just for
saying, like, when we're
examples.
looking at market analysis and, you know, trying to demonstrate that, it could be tricky, but there's another development, it's not underway yet, it just got planning board approval, I think this month, for a cottage court development that's just north of the hospital in Keene, so it's on Court Street, there's a property that's, I wanna say it's like 9 acres or something like that, and it's a very large number of houses that will go on it. I mean, maybe it might be 30. Again, I'm not suggesting what they're doing, but the piece that I'm taking away from it is these houses, which are, I think the maximum size is 1,200 square feet because there's a regulation for the maximum size in the cottage court developments in Keene.
Hmm.
And they're looking at still a price tag of $300,000, which isn't affordable. So.
There
But
is
so
no
then
such
how,
thing as
so then
affordable.
I guess
You
my
can't build
question to you is how,
it.
you can't build that, so how,
Right, how do
like,
we
if
make
we,
it
how do
possible?
we? I don't
Well,
want
multifamily.
to add something that's going to result in developments all over Temple that are going for $500,000.
Right.
And then we've ruined the character of our town.
Exactly.
Right, and
So
gave
that-
it no affordable housing.
Right.
So I am very hesitant when we talk about these things to be like, yeah, let's go for that because it's not happening. It's not happening in other places.
And we can't control the
And we-
market.
Don't have control over that.
Right.
Well, you do have some control over workforce housing units with, I'm losing the language. Oh, I wrote it down, deed restrictions.
Oh,
Good thing, I wrote it down on the table. You know, so you do have some control exclusively with workforce housing because the way the law is written. But those only last, you can change it, I think, with your own ordinance, but it's. Do you remember, Christina, the law, is it 20 years? Or is it
I think it
30?
is 20 years. Yeah, I'm not positive, but the planning board would be responsible for oversight, which is not something we have capacity for.
Really.
Okay,
Unless this, isn't there a bill that was going to provide funding for New Hampshire Housing to assist towns with that if they, I don't know if it passed, there's so many bills, yeah.
I should be paying attention to that one, but that is not one that I.
If it was, I doubt it will survive, given the financial.
Well, there's several that are on the consent agenda and they're not gonna be debated on Thursday. So I don't know if that's one of them.
Okay, I've been paying attention to the,
The NHMA legislative is the ones I get.
I've been watching the bill for, fire safety
Oh,
and changing the number of units for a sprinkled building.
oh, Yeah.
Because right now, like, that, in addition to other regulations you have in your community, that is definitely a barrier to having something that's got more than 3 units, because right
Mhm.
now it has to be sprinkled, and in the town, that's gonna mean putting in a cistern.
Right,
It's way too expensive.
It is.
Right.
It's far too expensive, and so it's gonna be interesting to see if that passes and how that's gonna change things throughout the state and that sort of thing. So I guess to kind of respond to your concern, Carter, because I think it's absolutely valid, 100%, because the goal is not to build up Temple, it's to open up opportunities for affordable housing to exist.
Mhm.
It is, but we have to be careful that
Right.
what we do.
And so part of the provision, when we're looking at, and this will be within the display boards, because this isn't a decision that we're gonna arrive at tonight, but if we're looking at up to a 50% increase in the density, it could be, if they're putting units in the PRD that are actually sharing walls, whether it's a duplex or a triplex, the law allows up to a 5-plex. And I know none of those are gonna be very popular options, but it's possible if they're presented in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, or had pictures of that little house, big house, back house barn, which I think was 4 units.
Okay.
And which looked like a single family house.
Hmm.
Which I think wasn't awful, because it looks like a lot of the buildings already in town.
Right.
It's just whether or not we have a lot of those together, because then it starts to look like an apartment complex.
Right.
Exactly, that's the first thing
That's
people are
the
gonna
tricky
say.
thing,
It's an apartment building.
right?
Well, and I also think you have to work it, like, in the first round of this, like, there were many beautiful images of ideas, right?
Mhm.
And I always came back to, like, show us real pictures of real things in the state and communities like ours that are the big house, little house, back house barn, because that's a beautiful aesthetic. But what builder is gonna build that?
Right.
Like,
It's not
It-
affordable.
it's not affordable, so
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
we're touting it as affordable, but it's not affordable, so
Right.
Right.
I just, and not trying to be the downer, but like, I want to like, be realistic about what it is that we could do and not show people things that they think that they're voting on, and
And
then
then something else.
something else,
Mhm.
we're opening the door for something
No,
else.
you're
Right.
absolutely right. This is what we've heard for years now from all the builders that have been here is, why would I build this stuff and sell it for 100,000 when I can build it and sell it for $500,000?
Yeah,
Mhm.
They're just not gonna do
It's the
it.
same with condos, they put in luxury condos, not
Not cheap condos.
affordable.
The buy-in to buy into this town today is 1.5 million. That's the lowest price house currently listed in Temple, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
There's one for 1.5 and one for 1.7, and that's it.
And it is insane. These things went for 300,000
Mhm.
some years ago.
Not the one next to me, that one
No,
was
no.
more, but
Yeah, but still, it's
yeah,
that's crazy,
yeah.
It
you
is.
know, that's crazy.
Mhm.
So I think we're not gonna answer this question tonight, but,
But it's.
but
opened
just
up-
something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay, well, moving along. So the affordability assurance, that is not something that's really within the town's capacity to enforce.
Correct.
So it will need to be within the ordinance regardless,
Mhm.
but it doesn't need to be in the PRD ordinance. It already is in the workforce housing ordinance, and it can stay there and just be applicable to any workforce housing, regardless. But I guess as this is being designed, that's just something that we're gonna have to be facing with our eyes wide open.
Mhm.
That it's really just a nicety happening in there.
Right, right. Unless there is some bill that passes that, yeah, or provides some assistance that won't cost us anything.
Right. Okay, and we already pretty much talked about the road standards. We don't want to encourage shared driveways, but do we just not even want to mention them?
I mean, they're already allowed, right?
Right.
They are
So-
already allowed,
Shouldn't,
Yeah.
just don't forbid them and.
Yeah.
that
so just
can-
don't mention them also though. like-
Just they have to follow the driveway standards, our driveway ordinance.
Well, the only thing is, you read the statement there,
Mhm.
the shared driveway. It's only allowed if the terrain conditions
Right,
force it.
for certain conditions, yeah, terrain is one of them.
That is too restrictive. It should maybe just be allowed by approval.
Well, we haven't finalized our latest version of our driveway regs yet. I'm still trying to get that latest version from Murray, so we can certainly revisit it, but
These are the same
It
discussions we're
also
having 6
isn't-
years ago.
I know, I know.
Is it something though that like, I mean, we saw one shared driveway in the past.
Yeah, and it's-
2 years that I've been on the planning
Right.
board, but like, how, is it something that comes up a lot or in the history? I mean, I'm not
It's
sure.
the
it's-
two that I know of, and the same two that you know of.
Yeah. Yeah,
I would just say shared driveways are something that developers love,
Yeah.
even if
yeah,
residents don't.
Yeah.
So it's important that you guys know what you're regulating, because if you allow it, you're gonna
Gonna have
see
it.
more of it.
It's not typically so important with 3 acre zoning,
Right.
Right,
but again, we have the backlot issue.
well, they still have to have road frontage with the back lot.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Mhm.
So do you want the shared driveway to be something that only lives in the driveway regulations? Or do you want to add anything to the PRD that addresses it?
I think it should remain in the
I
driveway
think so too.
regulations.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think,
Mm,
just leave it there. I mean, I understand the wanting to reduce the impervious surface piece of it and reducing the costs, but they haven't been terribly popular. I mean, you can, maybe if you're doing an example, you can show a shared driveway and see how people react to it.
Okay.
We may get information that we don't. Maybe there are people that do support it, we just haven't heard.
Well, I think people also need to understand, like, when you have a shared driveway, then how do you maintain it and who, like.
Right.
Wait, there's other things that go along. It's not just like, okay, I like that, sure.
Right.
Right, it's like.
Yeah.
The
well,
responsibility piece.
The responsibility.
Right,
piece.
that's the problem if there's two private parties. That's why a shared driveway works in a PRD, because I mean, part of the PRD
Yeah,
agreement,
okay.
when you buy into it,
You
We're
know
buying
what you're
that agreement.
buying into, right?
Yeah.
Right.
and part of your maintenance fee or whatever you end up
Mhm.
paying.
Do,
So I think we just get feedback.
I mean, does like Sarah Drive, do they have like a HOA or something?
I thought a PRD was required to have an HOA.
I don't recall there being an HOA there.
Really? That's, I always thought it was a subdivision. There's something
That's
weird about that
correct.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Jim
Um,
Hawkins did it.
Okay,
Yeah.
the Stone Gate,
they do have common land.
Does
So
have-
though.
it has-
There is
has
common land,
HOA,
not-
So
yeah,
that pays
yeah.
for the maintenance of the road.
yep, all the
Okay.
lots of roads, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Layout standards. You guys don't have anything specified. So this would actually create something for a developer to work within the parameters of, rather than just winging it. Which, you know, it works okay to just wing it, but if you do create some design standards, it might encourage this type of development,
Okay,
potentially.
Hmm.
You know, and it still would have planning board discretion as the ordinance currently is written, so that you guys can say this just doesn't make sense for this land, or, you know, it would be reasonable for you to have less frontage on these interior lots, or, you know, whatever, if maybe conservation goals were being met in a larger way.
Well, that already does sort of exist in the PRD regs. You have to have a certain amount of land of the common
Yeah.
land. But of course, what happens is I'll just put, whatever is not buildable becomes the common land.
Well, I think either 40 or 50% of the conservation land has to be buildable land.
There is some buildable requirement,
There
yes.
is a buildable requirement in there, but you're right. I mean, it's mostly let's throw the garbage into conservation, which could never have been built on anyway.
Right. I
And
mean,
I don't
the-
mean to say like steep slopes and wetlands are garbage, because they're absolutely not, but from a developer's perspective.
Well,
they
yes,
are.
I definitely know that there's land that's called buildable that is not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
No,
And so with this, I've made notes allowing smaller lots with variable setbacks and strong internal clusterings of homes within the PRD. A minimum 100-foot vegetated buffer between different uses and densities of land. And this is something we sort of started talking about last time when we were looking at buffering and not wanting to spoil a view by requiring screening.
mhm,
But buffering isn't the same as screening, you know, so it would just be requiring a larger setback so that if you do have a cluster of small homes, it's not gonna be, you know, 35 feet from the property line.
mhm.
And, you know, it wouldn't require berms, trees, what have you. It's just a deeper setback around the perimeter of the mother lot. And is that something you guys are interested in incorporating? I mean, you kind of have a provision, at least for commercial development, but you do have a provision within the special exception and the commercial development to have a pretty, I think is it a 500-foot setback? Anyway, that wouldn't be applicable to this anyway, because this isn't a commercial development, but
Right.
it's a standard that kind of exists within your zoning already that could be carried into this to make it less of an impact on a butter.
I think it makes sense if you have a larger lot, like more than 10 acres maybe. But on a 6 acre,
yeah, trying to get,
it would be pretty restrictive.
yeah, that would really chew up a lot of.
But even on a 6 acre, you're not gonna be able to get the density to have a different use.
Yes.
Right.
So that's something to consider with that, you know, this would be very specific if you're looking at different densities, so. You had 2 duplexes go up, for instance, on 10 acres, because you might be able to achieve that.
Mhm.
Would 100-foot setback be overly restrictive? From the sides? And possibly the rear, probably the rear. And it might be, which is why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know, that's an interesting one.
And I think like with a duplex, no, but maybe something bigger, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
that's,
you can have a single family home with an ADU and that's
That's true.
2 units.
that's right.
And we don't require that for,
No, and this would basically be tripling our setback. So that might be excessive.
yeah, I think it's excessive.
Okay, do you want to set any standard there?
Either none or maybe double the current setback, make it 70 feet
Okay,
or 75.
Do you guys have thoughts on that?
I'm just trying to visualize all these different scenarios.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it depends on, yeah.
it does depend on like, wait, are we talking about just two houses
Right.
on, or versus like a whole
well, again,
bunch of them, so maybe there's
2
some,
single-family homes would be a similar
yeah,
type of development that you see everywhere else in town. They might be a
Right.
little bit closer together, but the density is gonna be the same
More.
if you're talking about single family.
yeah.
You know, so this really, I mean, maybe this threshold applies when if a 4-unit,
And the number of units.
Building.
I feel like
Yeah, it is.
that
It's the
would
number of
make a lot
units.
more sense. If the number of units is higher, then you would want a buffer.
Yeah,
um,
I agree.
Versus the small.
Maybe it's
that we
4 or
see.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so aside from that, do you want me to create any other standards for the layout within the development? Or do you want to keep that just open?
What do other towns do?
Maybe pulling up off the top of my head. You know, one of the things is a lot of communities will set a minimum frontage so that you don't wind up having driveway fanning out like a bicycle wheel off
Yeah.
of a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So
okay.
that there is still some space, and the way it's written right now, you guys have the discretion to prevent that from happening.
Right.
But you can say you don't want the frontage to be less than 30 feet, so that there's definitely some space between the driveways. Or
Yeah,
the possibility of space between the driveways. Another is having, once, trying to think of how to phrase it. The minimum width of the property being sufficient for, the building and the setbacks and all of that. For more than just a little bit of the property. I'm sorry, I'm not conveying this well. Sometimes it's written as you need to fit a box that's, 250 feet by 250
Yeah, that's what we
feet.
do in our,
Yeah,
Okay, you guys have that
Yeah.
one? Okay.
yeah,
So that's one way to do it. So maybe you guys already have it, but I don't think that applies within your PRD.
no, the PRD,
No.
in my opinion, and from reality, except Sarah Drive, whatever that is, has been, it's a way to kind of do experimental building that would not normally be allowed under our zoning, but with planning board approval.
So maybe it's better to keep that loose.
I mean, I think the era of PRDs like Stonegate is probably over. Now any PRD is going to be a builder coming in and is gonna want to put a lot of houses in it. So I don't know.
the only thing that I remember coming up with, this was with Shelley Guy's PRD. On, what road is that? Moran and,
Moran Road,
yeah,
that's a PRD.
Yeah, I think
yeah, they did.
2 houses on it or something.
Four.
Oh, no, it wasn't a PRD, sorry.
was a
It-
PRD.
No, no, it
It
was
was
a
traditional.
subdivision.
Yep.
It was a subdivision, you're right. Well, I was thinking that one of the concerns from one of the abutters that was that when they presented the plan to us, the driveway was not directly across from their driveway, and then when it was built, the driveway was directly across from their driveway.
I sold them.
They were not happy about
No,
that.
they were not. I came in after the driveway was already in.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, they got preliminary approval for the driveways and that came to us at the planning board and we approved it. And then when they built it, they didn't put the driveway where the plans were, but it is at the discretion of the road agent to make changes if there's a valid reason. I don't know, we know we didn't follow up, we directed that homeowner back to the road agent. But that is something that, to consider,
That maybe,
to not have the entrance to a PRD be
Maybe
directly
directly.
across from somebody's driveway.
I'm not sure why that makes a difference actually, but
I don't know either, but it's just,
psychologically.
I'm just thinking of things that I've heard come up in the past.
yeah, I mean, if it's,
If I had a road directly across from my driveway, I don't think I'd be terribly happy either.
okay,
yeah, because it's not just
Well,
one,
sure.
it's not just a driveway.
It's
not
Yeah.
to just-
cars coming in and
Oh,
out,
oh, yes,
Same families coming in.
Right.
Right.
that's a different.
right,
Yeah,
yes, we all try to imagine it.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, and in the case, if a PRD were developed on 101 or any of the other state roads, DOT should prevent that from happening, because I believe that's within their standards to
Mm.
not be doing that. But you have other roads, so, I mean, I'm sure not all of the roads in your town are state roads, right?
No.
Now we've got 3,
Oh, cool.
45,
General
General
Miller,
Miller
101,
and 101, that's it.
yeah.
Well, and then another piece of this, well, I guess this is a separate piece over here that might not be part of the PRD, but we were talking about an overlay district.
Yes,
And it could be the higher densities needs, the overlay district is follow state roads or something like that, because that would help with the the regulating of everything,
Mm,
you know, and it wouldn't be the town's responsibility to regulate the way the driveway is built, where the driveway is built, or the private road.
yeah,
Um, But I don't know, do we want that to be part of this, or do we want that to be part of the workforce housing discussion that we,
I think part of the workforce housing myself, but. Cause that's where we're talking about potentially more density.
it's true.
And it is
Okay,
getting late,
It
so
is getting late, so,
is there any other urgent thing you need an answer from us on tonight? So our next meeting is looking at PRD revisions again.
Yep.
Digging a little more into workforce housing,
we will start digging into workforce housing. I should have some
presentation boards.
presentation boards and some draft language for PRD for you guys to react to. Obviously, it's gonna be very draft because we're gonna have a lot of outstanding items that won't really have language until we get community feedback.
Yep,
But there will be some placeholder language in there, so you guys are gonna be aghast, but please don't. The placeholder, I'll put X's, I won't put any.
okay,
You're gonna be like, what is all this? Because we need input.
yep,
Yeah, so we'll have, draft boards, draft PRD, and the beginning of workforce housing.
yep, and we hopefully will have legal review on the site plan review.
Good
I'm
job.
not ending the meeting, don't pack up yet.
Yeah, you're.
Just letting Sarah go home.
George told me these meetings last at least 2 hours.
Well, I'm shooting for 8:30, but I'm not sure we'll quite make it, but we'll try. Thank you very much, Sarah, and I'll look for the revised site plan and the community engagement plan.
Yeah.
You think
By
by,
bringing it back, it's gonna help to get those to you,
by Friday, you think?
to get them to you before the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay, well, Friday is fine for me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Go back to the agenda. So we did not, or you guys did not vote on the master plan chapter updates after the hearing. It sounded like there were no changes. But before they can be officially enacted, we have to vote on them and approve them. Bruce did not express any concerns when I talked to him, but does anybody else have any? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the amendments to the natural resources, economic environment, population and housing and land use chapters. And the adopt the implementation chapter, which was new.
So good. 'Cause I'm not.
Yeah, it's okay, you don't have to, I made my note. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, wake up. Okay, we will vote. Carter,
Yes.
Bill,
Abstain.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you, and I will get those posted on the town website and get copies to Carol in the office.
Thanks. That
Yep.
would be nice to have it be done.
Yes, that will be very nice. Von Sneidern Subdivision, I think I sent the email, or Russ sent the email to everyone that he filed them at Registry of Deeds, the plans for him and Randy's lot line adjustment, so those are done. And I think Carol will add the plan numbers. All-purpose storage, I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be done with that. It sounded like,
What that question that was asked today?
oh, there was an email today.
Yep.
I can't remember what the question was.
Good morning. I'm reaching out to confirm the requirements regarding building size limits and egress spacing for our current project. Does that-
Right, so the
anything
egress
else?
question, I feel like came up during our site plan review, and I thought he said they didn't need it because there was no internal unit, so I was confused by that question.
And he's also talking about sprinklers.
Right, and there should be no sprinklers as well, because they have no well.
Well, I thought they did have it.
Mm-mm. No,
But there was a reason we had no sprinklers though, because there's no,
because there was,
no hazardous waste storage
Or-
and no occupancy, I think.
no, right,
Again, I wasn't present for any. of
no,
that,
you
so,
weren't.
I saw the email and I was,
I'll go back and look at the notes then, and respond to him. Thank you for reminding me.
This is the expansion of the. place.
Storage facility, yeah,
Old.
yeah. Nothing to update on GIS, he said. That abutter definition, let's see, I did print something for that. So it did come to us in October, and I'm pretty sure we consulted with our attorney at that time, because we were updating our subdivision regs, which is the only place where we have the definition of abutter. And we don't have the language that says directly across the street or stream shall be determined by lines drawn perpendicular, etc. That part of the definition in the RSA. But we do say at the end of ours, we list the RSA and then we say as amended. So the question is, do we want to go back and update the definition in our subdivision regs, or just leave it as is? And I can ask the attorney that when we do the site plan,
I mean, I thought if it says the way that we have it.
As
then we're
amended,
covered.
then we don't need to do
We
anything.
don't need to do it.
That was my understanding as
Yeah.
well.
don't fix it.
It's interesting because, you know, the ZBA has to send out. I don't think we define butters, if the ZBA defines butters.
I mean, it's a long definition. This is all the definition,
And I guess my whole impression was like, we use that.
as amended
as
everywhere,
amended Everywhere, so that we don't have to go back and update everything
right,
every time a new.
right. So,
revision is.
right,
So I think
so
we-
I'll just confirm that that's the
Yeah.
case, but we looked at that in October. Let's see, I don't have an update on any legislative. Russ is still working on the zoning amendment, table of contents. I did get an inquiry for the updated version, and it was from Alan Pickman, and I responded and said, I can send you what I have. Excuse me, but the, table of contents is not accurate, so it's not an official version, and he said he would wait for the official version, and Russ has been working on that. I think, the only other thing was the land use regulations survey, which has to be in by June, and Bruce was gonna do that, but I don't know that has. It came a while ago.
We talked about that at the last meeting.
And I do have one other thing, and this is the last thing. I got an email from Lillian LaBelle. Oh, I skipped over your SolSmart. I'm gonna go back to that. Sorry about that. The Historic District Commission is working on updating the, regulations for the historic district. And they wanted to know at what point we wanted to get involved. There is something out there now, I guess they're making some revisions. The way that works is they will propose their changes, we can review it and just make sure it's consistent with our zoning, because our zoning would take precedence over anything they present. It goes to legal review, then they have a hearing, and then the Historic District Commission votes on it. It doesn't go to town meeting. So just be aware that that's coming, I guess, and I think Nate's on that.
Yes, how does that, is that like optional, or is it?
There's the RSA.
Okay.
You can,
Figure that out.
you can read all the relative RSAs. But the town voted, from what I understand, in 2008 to adopt this commission
Okay.
to oversee the historic district. And the current regulations are on the website under the Historic
Yeah.
District Commission, and
Yeah.
then those are the RSAs that regulate it.
Except, always keep in mind that the RSAs aren't necessarily the law. Because many of them are poorly written and they end up getting
Interpreted.
interpreted by the courts. And we used to get this book that had all the annotations and court rulings and stuff. So
Oh, yeah,
you could actually tell what they were.
it's all
That's just
online
Too
now.
expensive and well, you have to pay for it.
Yeah,
It's too much. You can just use the lawyer.
okay, let's go back to you, Jim.
How much time do we want to spend?
Uh,
Do we want to table it? So
Well,
just give
give
you,
us some-
give you a little wrap up.
Yep.
So I missed the meeting, but I watched the recording today.
Okay,
And that was basically the meeting is to talk about, large scale. right?
mhm,
Which we don't really have anything going on right now, but it talks about, how many acreage, would be required for a megawatt or larger size things and the things to consider. One thing they talked about in length was to consider adding now as opposed to waiting till it becomes necessary, battery storage kind of considerations, because that's becoming very, very popular. Or not just solar, but battery storage, pulling off the grid to store in case when the
mm,
power goes out, et cetera, so. Where we're supposed to be in the cohort would be, and again, they say this at every meeting over and over again, nobody has any expectation for us to be exactly where the cohort is driving us. So if we don't keep pace with where the cohort is, it's not a big deal, they can help us anytime afterwards, et cetera. But where they would be, and we're pretty up to par through April. May would be us looking at the checklist and potentially modifying the solar checklist. I have a copy of our solar checklist and their template. I have several copies if anybody wants to see them. I was prepared in case we wanted to go over them.
mhm,
Ours is pretty good. There's definitely some things in there that we could possibly consider adding to the checklist. Also, for those that don't know, we have an additional meeting in May, a training session in May, where we're supposed to be inviting our inspector, which is Will. I did reach out to Will and he said that absolutely in no circumstances can he attend. So I said I'll send him what comes out of it. So that's where that's at. So I guess where we're at is, and that was Bruce that suggested we put it on the agenda and actually do a working session
mhm,
to start this. But we're not in any rush. And if I was to make a suggestion, it would be to compare the two checklists, consider whether we want to make any changes to our checklist. And if we do, go over them and adopt them, using their template as a guide. And then we would move on to, if we wanted to look at zoning changes, that would be the next June topic.
okay,
We're in pretty good shape, I think. I don't think anybody here cares about the scoring piece of this, the bronze
yeah.
certification. I think we're in pretty good shape anyways with that.
I'll take a copy of the checklist.
Yeah, I got copies of everything.
I think Phil needs copies of everything.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of this. I've
Yeah.
heard indirectly about this, and the select board's question is, can you give me a one sentence response? Why do we need to change anything?
So it would be to consider things that it could work both sides, right? One would be to consider things that would get us ahead of preventing or making it more difficult for somebody to get solar. So getting ahead of things that may come up that would make it more difficult for someone to get solar. That's part of what they're trying to do here. The other side of it is, of course, to protect us as an entity from getting surprised with solar. So I looked at our checklist, it's pretty good, it's got pretty good coverage. And I think the right thing to do is just to kind of take a look at the different things in it. And just, we're under no pressure to adopt anything.
Okay.
Lots of changes going on. We're 44th in the country as far as leveraging solar.
Also, we're living in the dismal north.
Yeah,
Where
but
there's no sunlight.
But
there's a
solar
lot
is,
of
it's
increase.
going up like crazy.
Sure.
today they talked about solar is de facto the cheapest energy source as of now.
Well, we'll see what panels cost now.
Well, they're a lot cheaper.
Yes.
They've
but
gone
the
down by
tariffs-
almost 50%.
Except tariffs have been slapped on them.
Well, that tariffs could disrupt everything, but as of this meeting, they had. the
Yeah, they're
meeting.
cheap.
Their solar is definitely, we're gonna see even electric companies and power companies coming and saying, we wanna, we may not see that. I don't even know if we have any land that can accommodate that. But, you know, large scale solar farms from a power company, because it's cheaper than what they're doing.
Interesting, okay.
So
Yeah.
the Renewable Energy Task Committee is looking at putting in an array down by the elementary.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
They're still in the early stages.
Yeah.
But they are looking at doing something down
Yeah.
there. So that would be considered large scale, although they're looking at town land. So
Yeah.
there's
That's right.
different regulations, although they want to follow whatever, best practices or regulations that we come
Any
up
of these
with.
kinds of projects already would be subject to site plan review.
Yeah.
On a large scale.
On a large scale,
Yeah.
yes, but not residential.
No, not
I
residential.
think another area, I think, and it's kind of covered on the checklist loosely, but the area that comes to my mind, I used to be a firefighter.
Mhm.
And I used to manage a UPS installation at the base at Pease, as a matter of fact.
Mhm.
In fact, I got in a lot of trouble because I bypassed for the fire department, but I shut down an entire region. We had a fire alert, the fire department showed up. And the problem with the solar system is if the fire department doesn't know that you're running solar off of batteries and they come in
Oh,
and
sure.
turn off the main power, they may still be at risk.
Yep, still
Mm.
So
power.
we didn't have a bypass to bypass this large room scale UPS. So I shut it down to make the fire department safe, and there was a lot of hot water over that. So I put in a bypass switch. And actually, when I retired from there, they gave me the panel with the switch on it because I caused such a big.
It's all right. I shut down half a city when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Save
Yeah,
that
It's a
story.
long story.
Yeah, I bet. I wrecked a motorhome. Wasn't.
The other thing is, when we did our natural resources regulatory review, that was one of the recommendations, was to add solar to our ordinance. Not a requirement, but a recommendation. So simultaneously, the Conservation Commission was looking at recommendations for solar. So, sorry.
Okay.
So Jim went to a Conservation Commission meeting, and from what I gathered from the minutes, they're at this point waiting to see what we present, and then they'll react to it.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
what your understanding was?
Really what yes, but the biggest thing was the guy that's doing that effort wasn't gonna be back for a couple of months.
Oh,
So
okay,
he's out, but they did allow me to talk about it and they shared what they were doing and.
Yep.
and we agreed that we should, keep in touch. So,
right.
Okay.
So
All
it
right.
didn't just come out of nowhere, just so you know. And it was not something that would be covered under the HOP grant, and so this program came out at the same time, and it's no cost to us to
Okay.
participate. So we thought we would take advantage just because it's available and see where it goes.
Sure.
So if anybody wants, this is the assessment or scorecard of where we are with this comprehensive.
Yeah.
And then those two are the checklist that they provide and the checklist that we have in place today. So,
Sorry, I thought they were. There you go, that's.
I also think that because I kind of felt similarly, Bill, where, for example, we don't have any zoning, so why is that a limitation for solar coming in? That was my question a couple times to people, and I mean, I think it also helps the homeowner by putting some parameters in place so that companies can't necessarily take advantage of them, right?
Mhm.
And do things that.
Oversell or
Yeah.
shoddy work. kind of.
and they do offer protection for that too. If we have somebody that is looking to use a business solar installation, they'll review the documentation to look and see if there's any gotchas in there.
That's
So that's helpful.
Yeah, well, there's definitely, we put solar in a few years ago. And the first company we talked to definitely tried to oversell
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
by a huge amount.
yeah.
And we did not go with them.
I would personally suggest that, I don't know how you pronounce it, but the Harry, HARIE.
Co-op type.
It's a local
No,
solar thing that I've attended a couple of their solar raisings and stuff, and they're seem to be a good play, because I'm gonna be doing solar too, just as soon as I sell my other rights. If I can get some funds free, I'll be putting solar on my roof, but it does have some interesting stuff. Yeah, I watched the video the other day, just a scare topic here. There was a video I watched by a guy named Will Prouse that's very popular on YouTube. All things solar, if you want to know anything solar, he's the guy. But he was putting on his flat roof of his building new solar arrays. And he had solar arrays on there and he kept having leak problems with his roof. So he took everything off, sealed up his roof, and he didn't want to put any penetrations in his roof anymore. There's a company out there that takes a standard cinder block. And they make a metal plate that you put underneath the cinder block and it frames, and you can mount your solar on what being held down by cinder blocks. on your roof.
until the wind blows.
Well, theoretically, and I'm like, that
Man.
scares the heck out of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
That does not seem to be a good idea. But that would be an example of maybe
Of
something
why
that
you
you
might
wanna,
want zoning, right?
why do you want something in your document? No, you cannot put cinder blocks. They have to be permanently affixed fixtures or whatever.
Yeah.
On your roof, yeah. You wanna put them on your land mount or your ground mount, maybe.
So, I don't know what you guys are feeling, if you want to go through, but if you can just tell me what, on this, what's highlighted and why, and what I
Yeah,
should
so
be
the
looking
highlight
at.
wasn't me,
Okay.
that is from them.
Okay.
And there is if you go out to the actual documentation, they have notes on all the sides.
Yep.
So I don't know where those changes came through. But
Okay,
the biggest things I noted, I kind of went through the different items like, we don't require electrical permit, building permit, zoning permit. We require the solar permit.
Well, we do require electrical inspection.
Yes, the inspection's on there, yeah. And then, site plan, ours basically says, give us a simple diagram of the major components. So if we wanted to elaborate on that or not. Then, I didn't see much, other than maybe the documentation they have on here.
The introduction.
Definitions and introductions
Yep.
might be something we might wanna consider.
Because there's no guidance, there's
Yeah.
only the form that we have right now, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then the only other area I would consider looking at closer would be any battery storage. Because as it is today, you could fill the basement of your house with a bunch of lead acid batteries and nobody would. I guess the building is, the electrical inspection might call that out, but
I doubt it.
where is that on this form?
I don't think that's on the form.
Oh, okay,
That's something I'm just passionate about.
yeah, no, that's
I
good,
know enough about batteries, especially, now they're using
Yeah,
200 amp LiPo batteries.
yeah, yeah.
Now
That's the real danger.
that's a
Lithium-
runoff. Yeah, that's a
lithium ones.
runaway
Yeah.
issue, blow up your house. So lead acid would be the, spill it. Same thing though. If you put lead acid batteries down in your basement, you don't heat the basement, it gets cold enough and the solar turns off and the batteries freeze and then it warms up, the solar panel starts sending a charge to your batteries and you burn your house down.
Yep.
Or if there's a house fire.
Well, yeah, clearly the house fire, but I watched a military truck burn up in the winter because they came out, we couldn't start it, so we called maintenance, vehicle maintenance, they came out, put a charger on it. Well, battery was frozen, it was overnight in Wisconsin. And the battery exploded, caught on fire and the truck burned.
do you have, copies of any of the other stuff for Bill, or should we just refer him to
We can refer them to
There's a-
that.
Email
a
them.
Dropbox?
Yeah, I can send you any, so they have a Google Drive. We can send you.
Okay,
stuff
send me
that's in
the
Google Drive.
information, you
Yep.
can pick it up from there.
Yeah,
That's probably the best way.
yeah, it can be overwhelming, but just.
Yeah.
The cohort guide, I think, is the best place to start.
Cohort
Most of
guide.
them overwhelmed, no
I
problem.
know,
cohort guide's nice, the baseline assessment was a little cryptic.
Yeah, I just skipped over that.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked.
Well, part of what I intended to do, if we wanted to go that route, was take some of the language that they, because they go through, they have identify PZ1, PZ2, PZ3, PY1, PY2, and they'll say, okay, this is to look at this. Is there any reference to the type of solar you have? And if our guidance doesn't have it, it would say yours doesn't have it. We suggest you use this verbiage. And we can look to adopt that verbiage or not.
Yeah.
And go through each one and make a decision.
Yeah,
Whether we think it's important enough to adopt or whether it's too restrictive.
right,
Most of it is just guides, so.
right. So I guess I'm wondering about the order of what they're recommending. If we do the checklist before we do regulations,
Zoning, yeah.
that seems backwards.
I think it's that way because the checklist is a lot quicker to do than to go
Maybe.
through the zoning, but
Mm,
we don't have to adopt.
Yeah,
any
we don't have to
process
do it in their order
Yep,
either.
exactly.
Yeah, just, yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So whatever we decide the order is, I'll try and do my best to kind of,
okay.
help guide it.
So between now and next meeting, we should look at the checklist and the recommendations, and you should look at everything.
yeah,
Does
And
that
we'll
work?
talk about it at the next meeting.
okay.
Motion to adjourn.
So
Well, vote.
I guess I better write that down, huh? I closed up my laptop.
Oh, okay, it's
Yes.
8:46.
Brian, what happened? Heard that?
You want to stop?
Oh, I thought it was.
Yeah, I can tell you.